So, we all know that feeling, don't we? You're facing something really genuinely tough, you lay it all out.
Hmm.
And the advice you get back feels, I don't know, like a pat on the head. This too shall pass. Or that really relentless, cheerful, just stay positive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it can feel so invalidating sometimes.
Exactly. It's like you're stuck, right, stuck at point A, feeling
Mm.
completely lost, and they're just sort of yelling the finish line at you, point Z, but with absolutely no clue about the messy, confusing path in between.
That really hits home.
Yeah.
And it points to, a real need for something more, doesn't it? Something more substantial than just those surface level reassurances.
Yeah.
When we're really grappling with big stuff, we're looking for genuine understanding, right? A way forward, not just a comforting soundbite.
Couldn't agree more. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. You shared this really compelling dialogue with us. Picture this. A student monk and his master, quiet temple courtyard, sunsetting.
It's a beautiful setting. And the conversation itself is just packed with insight. Real insight into how we actually navigate those difficult times. Moving beyond just, hoping for the best.
Right. It's about understanding the actual process.
Yes. And this conversation, it offers some incredibly practical steps, a real shift in perspective, actually. It's less about those feel-good phrases, which have their place maybe, but much more about tangible strategies, things you can start to think about, maybe even apply right away.
That's the goal for this deep dive, then, to pull out those actionable insights, those, useful tools from this quiet exchange. And it really kicks off with a question the student monk himself asks, coming from his own frustration, which is, how do you actually get from that stuck feeling at point A to where you want to be, point Z, when all those steps in between just feel, well, completely invisible? Okay, let's really dig into this problem, this missing middle ground.
Yeah, what's so great about the student monk's starting point, his frustration, is how clearly it captures that feeling. So many of us have it. That advice, the A to Z kind, even when it's meant well.
It usually is, yeah.
It basically gives you a destination, sure, but zero map. Leaves you standing there at the crossroads just feeling totally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know how to get from here to there.
It's like getting flat pack furniture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got the picture of the finished bookcase, but you're just staring at a pile of wood and screws, completely lost. Where do you even start?
That's such a perfect analogy, and that feeling of being lost, going in circles maybe. The student monk really nails that. But then this is where it gets really interesting, because the master monk's reaction is, well, not what you'd expect.
It's very counterintuitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so powerful. Instead of jumping in with solutions or comfort, the master monk actually gives thanks for the student's frustration.
Thanks for it. Wow.
Yeah. It reframes that whole feeling of being stuck. It's not a dead end, not something negative. It's actually presented as a really significant positive find. Like your inner compass is starting to point towards something deeper.
Okay, so frustration isn't the enemy here.
Not at all. He suggests it shows the students looking for more than just surface answers. That yearning, that dissatisfaction with the usual cliches, that's actually the first sign of real growth kicking in.
Right. It's the spark that sets you off, moving beyond just wishing things were different. That frustration sort of admits, okay, the old way isn't working.
Precisely. That feeling, it signals a readiness to move past the superficial and really engage with the challenge on a more meaningful level. And it's right there from that point that the master monk introduces the first crucial step. Awareness.
Okay, awareness. Let's unpack that. The master monk explains how even that, let's say, less than perfect advice we get sometimes.
The this too shall pass stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Even that can actually serve a purpose. Maybe not in the words themselves, but because they can create a kind of break, a pause in our usual mental churn.
That's fascinating, isn't it? Even if the advice isn't the solution, it can interrupt the momentum. The master monk calls it our internal soap opera.
Huh. I like that.
The endless cycle of worry, frustration, maybe self-criticism. It just sucks up all our energy. Awareness here acts like hitting the pause button on that drama.
Okay, like hitting mute on the noise in your head for a second?
Yeah.
And that pause, even if it's just brief, it lets you step back and just acknowledge something fundamental. Things aren't okay. Something needs attention.
That's the absolute key. Awareness, in this sense, is just that focused recognition. Something needs looking at. It's like, as the master monk says, opening a door inside yourself, starting to look inward for guidance instead of just being swept along by the outside world or your own thoughts. But, and this is important, as the master monk points out, awareness is really just the first step. It's recognizing you're at that crossroads.
Right. Knowing you're lost is step one, but you still need, well, a way to get unlost. You need a map, you need tools. And that's exactly the second step the Master Monk brings in, acquiring tools.
These tools, they're the practical bits. The bridge, as the student monk later calls it so well, they help you navigate those fuzzy bits between A and Z.
The actual how.
Yes. The specific practices, the helpful ways of looking at things, the skills you need to actually face the challenges, learn from them, and move forward. Think of it like gathering the supplies to build that bridge.
And the mastermind gives some really solid examples of what these tools actually look like. Let's touch on a few. First up, meditation.
Right. Meditation is presented as this really powerful tool for just calming that often very turbulent mind by creating moments of stillness intentionally. It lets clarity emerge. It's like letting muddy water settle so you can see the bottom. Quieting the chatter lets you see the assumptions, maybe the deeper truths about the challenge.
That makes total sense. When your head's spinning, seeing clearly is impossible. Another tool he mentions is reflection.
Reflection. Yeah, this is about consciously taking time to look back, to examine patterns in your life, understand the themes, the lessons hidden in past experiences. It's about being a student of your own history, really, mining it for wisdom.
So not just remembering, but actively learning from the past.
Exactly. Actively mining it. Turning past stumbles into future wisdom.
Oh,
And then there's the power, often underestimated, I think, of asking yourself specific questions. The Master Monk highlights, too, what can I learn from this?
okay.
And what is actually within my control?
Those are powerful. They really shift your focus, don't they?
Instantly. Instead of just dwelling on the problem, feeling helpless, you're looking for the lesson, and you're putting your energy where it counts on what you can actually influence. That's empowering.
Yeah, the what can I learn question that reframes things immediately. You're not a victim anymore, you're a student.
Precisely. And finally, the Master Monk talks about actively seeking knowledge. From books, from teachers, even just from our own experiences. Different sources.
Right. It underlines that growth isn't, a solo mission. There's so much wisdom out there. If we just look for it, stay open to it.
From lots of different perspectives, too.
So the big shift here is from passively waiting for time to fix things to actively building that bridge. From your current spot to where you want to be. The student monk has a really sharp observation about this.
He does. He realizes that life's exams, as the Master Monk calls them, they aren't meant to be just endured passively.
Right.
They're active learning moments. You need to be both the student learning from the challenge and the teacher applying that knowledge to help yourself move forward.
That's a really empowering way to look at it. Moving from feeling like a victim of circumstance to being an active player in your own growth. And the Master Monk adds that these tools, these essential things, they aren't some secret knowledge locked away.
Absolutely not. He wisely points out they're often just hidden in plain sight all around us.
Hidden in plain sight. Like where?
Well, they could be in a book that just clicks with you, or a deep conversation you have. Maybe a sermon gives you a new angle, or even a scene in a movie sparks something.
Huh. Or even just quiet moments inside yourself.
Exactly, those moments of stillness. It's about cultivating that awareness, that openness, to spot wisdom wherever it pops up.
So you need to train yourself to see these little nuggets of wisdom day to day. But how do you know if something you stumble across is actually a useful tool for you?
That's a really crucial question. And the Master Monk explains that a truly valuable tool will often just resonate deeply, either emotionally or intellectually.
Like a light bulb moment.
Yeah, it might bring sudden clarity or a new understanding that just feels right, profound even. It illuminates something that was dark before.
And he says, don't just brush those moments off as coincidence.
No, definitely not. He encourages the student and us to consciously collect these insights,
Yeah.
to intentionally add them to your mental toolbox, your suitcase of wisdom.
I like that, suitcase of wisdom.
It's a deliberate gathering of resources for the road ahead. And the Master Monk uses this really strong analogy here, comparing life to a series of ongoing exams.
Yes. He says if you don't have the right tool for a particular exam, or maybe you forgot you have it,
Right.
then those life challenges can become intensely painful. You feel completely lost, overwhelmed.
But importantly, he reframes that pain. It's not punishment. It's more like a direct result of being unprepared for that specific test. And when you do fail an exam, when you stumble,
Which we all do.
absolutely, it's not the end of the story. It's actually a really valuable chance to learn and grow for next time.
Okay, so failure itself becomes the lesson. You look
Yeah.
closely, what was missing? What tool didn't I have or didn't I use? Was it patience, perspective, maybe courage, forgiveness.
Hmm. Each stumble highlights a gap in your toolkit.
Mm.
It gives you clear direction on what to look for next.
So the discomfort, the pain of failure, it becomes a signal, a voice of wisdom telling you, hey, you need to build up this area.
Exactly. Develop and expand your inner resources. But the master monk also adds a really important note of caution about choosing these tools.
Right. He warns against just grabbing everything. Right. Not every piece of advice or insight is actually helpful. He stresses using discernment.
Precisely. Not every tool fits every job. What helps you in one phase of life might be useless or even harmful in another. He advises testing your tools. See if they actually bring peace or understanding or resolution when you apply them.
And if a tool just seems to cause more confusion or harm or stir things up in a bad way,
Then you set it aside, consciously.
hmm,
Recognize it's not serving you right now and look for something else that aligns better with your needs, your values. This process of trial and error, of refining your toolkit, that's a huge part of learning and growth.
Okay, so the student monk, he's taken all this in about gathering tools, and then he asks this really perceptive question. He wonders why the master's only sharing this deep wisdom now and not way back when he first came struggling.
Yeah, that's a question so many of us ask ourselves when we finally get something, isn't it? Why didn't I see this sooner? The Master Monk's answer really speaks to the nature of learning itself and the crucial idea of readiness.
He uses that beautiful analogy about planting a seed. You don't
Mhm.
just pour water on it constantly from day one, right? You wait until it actually sprouts, until it's reaching for the light.
Exactly. Wisdom, like that seed, can't be forced on someone who is ready to receive it. When the student first came to the master, his mind was probably full of the surface stuff, the frustration, the anger, wanting quick fixes. He wasn't really in a place to ask the deeper questions yet.
So the master waited for the student to mature a bit, spiritually speaking, until he wasn't satisfied with easy answers anymore and genuinely wanted to understand things more deeply.
Precisely. True wisdom isn't just being told. It requires seeking, questioning, experiencing it yourself. The very fact that the student is asking these deeper questions now is the sign. It shows he's finally opened that inner door, ready to receive more.
The student then expresses a little regret, maybe feeling like he wasted time earlier by not being ready, but the master reassures him.
He does, and it's such an important point. He basically says every single step was necessary, even the ones that felt aimless or frustrating.
Even the confusion.
Yes, those struggles, those unanswered questions, feeling lost, they were all part of the journey. They were preparing him for this deeper understanding now. Like fruit needs time to ripen, wisdom does too.
So the master was kind of planting seeds all along, maybe, offering little lessons, insights, even if the student didn't see their value back then.
Exactly. And now the student's finally starting to recognize them. The master points out that the questions the student can ask now simply couldn't have come from the person he was before.
That's quite profound.
It is. He acknowledges the student's gratitude for his patience, even when the student wasn't fully aware. And the master's response is so encouraging. He reminds him, this is just the beginning. There will always be more questions, more lessons, more tools to gather.
A lifelong journey.
And he leaves him with this really important reminder. When the next challenge comes, the next curveball, it's not a punishment. It's another chance. Another chance to learn, grow, and use the tools he's been gathering.
Okay, now shifting gears slightly, the conversation then explores how people in our lives can actually be powerful teachers. This idea of relationships as mirrors.
This is such an insightful way to look at things. It suggests the people we interact with, they aren't just random. They often reflect aspects of ourselves, our strengths, sure, but also our shadows, our unhealed wounds.
So, someone who consistently triggers anger in you might be reflecting your own unresolved anger issues, or maybe testing your patience.
Could be either or both. Exactly. And the text gives some really relatable examples like, a friend betraying your trust. Painful, yes, but it can teach you so much about boundaries. And forgiveness,
Or that difficult colleague at work.
yeah, they can be a constant test of your ability to stay calm amidst chaos.
It really reframes those difficult relationships. Instead of just sources of frustration, they become potential opportunities for growth, for self-discovery. But the key seems to be where you put your attention when things get tense.
Precisely. The text really encourages turning inward, rather than just blaming the other person. When you're in a difficult interaction, ask yourself those powerful questions. What in me is this touching that's still unhealed? Or what belief am I holding right now that's fueling my reaction?
That shift changes everything. It moves you from trying to change them, which rarely works, to understanding your own inner world, taking responsibility for your own reaction. It's about reclaiming your power in the situation, really.
It's a massive shift from feeling like a victim to being an active participant in your own emotional well-being and growth. And building on this idea of challenges being transformative, the text introduces suffering as a sculptor.
That's a really potent image. Instead of seeing suffering as just negative or punishment, it's presented as this active force that shapes who we become.
Like fire refining gold or wind carving stone. Suffering can strip away the unnecessary, the false, the inauthentic within us. It
Wow.
reveals what's real, what's enduring at our core. It can even wake us up from, complacency or numbness.
And the text points out hidden gifts within pain, like loss teaching us to cherish what remains, illness forcing us to finally listen to our bodies.
Exactly. And maybe most profoundly, that deep grief teaches us about love because we only grieve what we truly valued. Suffering, seen this way, isn't meant to break us, but to reveal our strength, our depth.
Break us open, maybe, to let more light in, more empathy, more understanding. The text even shares that beautiful Japanese concept.
Yes, kintsugi. That art of repairing broken pottery with gold, highlighting the cracks instead of hiding them. It's such a powerful metaphor for how our own breakages, our hardships can actually make us more beautiful, more valuable, unique.
So instead of rushing through pain, the advice is to actually sit with it, let it speak.
Yes. Ask those deep questions. What part of me feels like it's breaking open? What wisdom is trying to emerge through this sorrow? Pain becomes less of an enemy and more of a slow, thorough teacher.
And it's suggested, too, that our own pain, once we've worked through it, integrated it, can become a source of help for others going through similar things.
Yeah, absolutely. Our transformed suffering can become like a lantern for others in the dark, illuminating their path with empathy, with understanding. It's a reminder that even our struggles can have meaning beyond ourselves.
Okay, the conversation then shifts again, tackling those recurring challenges, those life patterns that just seem to repeat no matter what we do. Feels like being stuck in a loop sometimes.
Oh, that feeling is so common. Being caught in a cycle. The text offers a really helpful reframe here. It suggests these aren't really stagnant circles of failure, but more like a spiral path.
A spiral. That's interesting. More optimistic.
Exactly. Even if it feels like you're facing the same problem again, you're actually approaching it from a slightly higher vantage point each time, with a bit more wisdom, maybe more strength, more self-awareness than before.
So life isn't just repeating the punishment.
No, it's giving you another chance to respond differently, more skillfully this time.
So when these patterns show up again, it's not failure. It's more like a sign that something inside still needs attention, healing, releasing.
Precisely. It prompts a deeper look inward. What's the root of this pattern? What emotions are tied to it? What limiting beliefs are fueling it? Are there fears keeping it going? Maybe an old memory that planted the seed.
It's about getting beyond just managing the symptoms and really addressing the core issues driving the pattern. But the text also warns about a potential trap on this path of growth.
Yes, the subtle but significant idea of the spiritual ego.
Spiritual ego, what's that exactly?
It's the ego's clever ability to kind of disguise itself,
Yeah.
even when you're on a path supposedly meant to transcend the ego.
So instead of I'm better because I have more stuff, it's
It might be I'm more evolved because I meditate more, or I'm more spiritually aware than them. It trades worldly status markers for spiritual ones.
okay. Leading to comparison, maybe false humility.
Exactly. Comparison, false humility, maybe even a fear of appearing flawed, because it might shatter that spiritual image you've built up.
It's a good reminder that real growth isn't about achieving some perfect spiritual identity. It's messy. It involves honesty, acknowledging imperfections, ups and downs.
And continuing that theme of inner work, the conversation turns to our need for control.
That's a big one for so many of us. That feeling that if we can just manage everything, orchestrate everyone, we'll finally feel safe, secure, at peace.
But the text points out, quite wisely, that this need for control often comes from fear, from that desire for certainty in a world that's inherently uncertain. It's like fear putting on the armor of control.
And what we try to control most often shows our deepest fears, doesn't it? Trying to control others might be fear of abandonment. Micromanaging tasks might be fear of inadequacy.
Exactly. And the text emphasizes that real strength isn't in that tight grip of control, which is often exhausting anyway. It's in the courage to surrender, to let go of needing to manipulate outcomes and trust life's flow.
Surrender doesn't mean giving up, though, right?
Not at all. It's not apathy. It's releasing what's not ours to hold and choosing peace over that illusion of perfect control. The master monk uses that lovely analogy.
The bowl of water, yes. Grip it too tightly, too rigidly, and it spills.
But relax your grip, find balance, find flow, and you can carry it much more easily, much more stably.
Makes perfect sense. And from letting go of external control, the conversation naturally moves to the power of silence.
Yeah, in our world, which is just relentlessly noisy, constantly connected, actual silence can feel, well, uncomfortable sometimes. But the text highlights its incredible value.
It's not just emptiness.
No, it's not just the absence of noise. It's a rich inner space, a sanctuary where thoughts can settle, where that quieter inner voice can finally be heard, where the soul can speak its wisdom. It's a gateway to deeper awareness, patience, understanding.
It's a reminder that not all answers come from outside, or from the constant chatter inside our heads. Sometimes the biggest insights come from those quiet moments.
Mhm. And the text contrasts our modern tendency to fear or resist silence, to fill every gap with its timeless value. It suggests that it's often in those gaps, in that stillness, that we truly meet ourselves.
Okay, another common hurdle many of us face, comparing ourselves to others. It seems almost automatic, but the text points out how damaging it can be.
It really is the thief of joy, isn't it? When we constantly measure our lives, our progress against how others seem to be doing, we just breed insecurity, inadequacy. We get distracted from our own unique path.
It's so easy to do, especially now with social media showing everyone's highlight reels look so perfect.
Exactly. But the text reminds us, we're often comparing our messy, real beginnings to someone else's polished middle. They're highlights to our behind-the-scenes struggles.
That's unfair to ourselves.
Totally unfair.
Yeah.
So it encourages us to shift focus away from those external benchmarks, turn inward, celebrate our own progress no matter how small, learn from our own challenges without needing that yardstick of comparison.
And building on that inner focus, the conversation explores finding calm amidst the storm. That idea that real peace isn't just about the absence of chaos outside.
Precisely. True. Lasting peace is an inner state. It's our ability to stay anchored, calm, despite the turbulence around us. The text uses that beautiful analogy.
The stone at the bottom of the pond.
Yes. The surface ripples, things get stirred up, but the stone stays steady, unmoved in the depths. It's about cultivating that core of inner stillness, that peace within, that isn't dependent on external events always being perfect.
And focusing on the present moment is key to that, right?
Absolutely key. When you're fully present, right here, right now, you're much less likely to get swept away by worries about the future or regrets about the past.
Now, something that might seem counterintuitive when we think about strength is vulnerability. The text looks at this in a really insightful way.
It really challenges that traditional idea that strength means being tough, hiding weakness, putting up walls. Instead, it presents vulnerability as a form of courage.
Courage.
Yes, the courage to be open, authentic, to let ourselves be seen, flaws and all.
So real strength isn't in those impenetrable walls, but in the resilience to be open, to connect, to allow for healing.
Exactly. The text uses another great analogy here.
The tree.
The tree. Its strength isn't just the visible trunk and branches. It's the huge, unseen network of roots anchoring it deep in the earth. Our vulnerabilities, when we embrace them, are like those hidden roots. They provide a deeper, more resilient, more authentic kind of strength.
And that leads naturally into trusting the process of life itself, surrendering to the flow, rather than fighting to control every detail.
Life just unfolds in its own rhythm, its own timing. The key is developing trust in that process, letting go of that need to micromanage every step, and having faith, really, that we'll be guided where we need to go. The river analogy works so well here.
Yeah, moving with the current, not constantly paddling against it. And tied into this trust is patience.
Patience, often seen as just passive waiting, but the text reframes it beautifully. It's an active presence, a deep trust in life's timing, understanding that real growth is gradual, like a tree growing slowly but steadily.
So it's not about doing nothing, but about observing, acting wisely when the time is right, cultivating inner stillness, even when we want quick results.
Exactly. Patience, seen like that, becomes this incredibly valuable, empowering gift we can give ourselves. And finally, the conversation circles back to acceptance and surrender. Emphasizing again, surrender isn't giving up. It's accepting what is right now without resistance, learning to flow with life's currents.
It's releasing that constant need to control everything, fighting reality, and instead finding peace in the present moment. trusting life's unfolding.
It's that powerful act of letting go of what we can't control,
Hmm.
moving gracefully with the tides of life, and finding a deep, resilient strength in that very act of surrender.
So, wow. As we kind of wrap up this deep dive, looking back at this rich conversation between the student and the master monk,
Yeah.
several key things really stand out for me.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of awareness, right? Not just of the outside stuff, but our inner world, thoughts, feelings, beliefs. Then the absolute necessity of actively getting practical tools, like meditation for clarity, reflection to learn from the past, asking those focused questions,
Yeah.
make tools to actually navigate the tough
Yeah,
times.
practical how-to.
And the value in embracing discomfort, learning from so-called failures, seeing
Yeah.
relationships, even difficult ones, as mirrors, as teachers. It all points towards that inner work, doesn't it? Understanding ourselves, letting go of that illusion of control, finding patience and strength in acceptance and surrender.
It really does. These insights offer a kind of inner map, a set of tools to help navigate your own unique alphabet of life's journey, moving way beyond those superficial bits of advice to a deeper, more personal understanding of how growth and healing actually happen. It's about the process.
So, as you, our listeners, take some time to mull over our conversation today, maybe consider this. What's one specific tool or insight from this deep dive that really resonates with the challenge you might be facing right now?
Just one thing that stands out.
Yeah. And then what's maybe one small actionable step you could take maybe this week to actually start putting that tool or perspective into practice, even in a tiny way?
Remember, you already have so many inner resources.
Mhm.
Resilience, wisdom, potential for growth. It's already there. By cultivating awareness, gathering your tools, learning to trust the process, you really can navigate your path with more understanding, more strength, and hopefully more peace.